Hey fellas, PV2 Smurf here. PV2 Smurf here. PV2 Smurf. Ho fellas, PV2 Smurf here. Today we're going to do our 100K service. Just so you know, it is a long video. I'll put links up top for you. If you need anything else, leave it in the comment section. Without further ado, take it away, Smurf. Alright, so to make good use for time while the coolant drains, as this process occurs over and over again, you have this waiting period for everything to drain out thoroughly. Let's go ahead and mark off the inspect, or the end cab above ground inspect things. The first thing we're going to do inside this cab is check our cabin air filter. Now to access that, it's pretty simple. Glove box has to be cleaned out. Sorry if it's not. I was unaware when I bought the truck that this is an actual, somebody I believe had purchased this. The actual glove box compartment did not come with this from factory. The previous owner, before I purchased the vehicle, must have bought it, but it does a really good job of making this a usable space and not just an open hole. Therefore, your setup may be a little different, but the same process. So your cabin air filter is located behind this. If you don't have this, when you clean everything out, you should be able to reach it. But if you have one of these, it's pretty simple. So this comes up, this side here goes that way. We'll remove it. And when you remove it, you can look back in here and you can see there's a door located in the back here. As you can see, I don't know if you can see it in the video, it says slide up and remove. So you slide this up, then it comes off, as so. You can see the housing that holds the cabin air filter in place. There are two clips on it. There's one located on this side, one located on this side. Now to remove these, they're simple. Pull in towards the center. Pull this one in, pull this one in. You do that, you remove it, and there is your cabin air filter. Now prior to replacing and using this one right here, this thing was completely covered with debris. Now this one has small remnants of debris on it. As you can see, you can replace this if you would like. My assumption is if you're at 100,000 miles and somebody's unaware of where it's located, they probably not changed it. This filter is very inexpensive. It's very cheap to buy. I believe here is the FRAM part number or a part number for a filter. Either which way, they're easily found. If you look on the filter itself, it shows airflow and which direction the air is going to flow. So basically this filter will go in a manner in which air will flow through this filter. Now that fan there, when it blows, it brings air in from inside and brings it up. So therefore, you want to make sure you don't install a filter if it has a flow in the wrong direction. So if you put it in like this, it's in the wrong direction. What we want to do is make sure that it's installed like this, because flow is going up. It's coming from the bottom floorboard up, and then you just reinstall it. In order to clean the fins out that are located on the cabin filter housing that holds it in place, you'll need compressed air, or you'll need a detail brush in order to clean those. You also want to make note, if you want to get this off completely, there's two, it looks like maybe 6, 8, maybe millimeter bolts right here, two of them. When you do that, it'll remove this right here, which has this fin guard on it. Majority of dirt that you see from the front gets caught on this built-in filter thing here, so that way, assumption is it traps air from going in or out. So if you want to remove that, you can, and that'll get it super clean for you. Now as you can see, the fins are clean, but the permanent filter piece that stays in here, this fabric, it does not, I did not remove it and clean it, because then you got to let it dry and things. And this is sufficient for me. Why is it important to have a clean cabin air filter? Well, if you live in a state like Texas, somewhere where you need cold air and you recycle the air inside so it stays cool, you understand the importance of temperature degree difference on a hot day. Now, I would advise you, while you're already in here, even if it's not part of the 100,000 miles, go ahead and hit this with a little bit of cleaner. So that way it'll go from this to this. So that way you know this area has already been cleaned. Reinstall your stuff back in a glove box. Or you know what? Why don't you take time and clean that out? While you sit and ponder on what you think you might have in your glove box at the current moment, what you shouldn't have in it, let's take a break. The next thing to check on our in-cab above ground list is your driver floor mat. This truck comes with these floor mats. I'm unsure if all models come with their floor mats in them with the name of the truck on it. I just think certain models do. My 2009 Tacoma, which a play link will be listed here for the engine and stuff I disassembled, it did not come with floor mats that had this on it. However, I believe the reason why this is now included is due to the Prius incident of massive acceleration, which I explained in my intro video that you'll see right up here now. So this floor mat specifically goes in and locks in place. There's a locking tab here, there's one located here, and basically all you do is you just make it a quarter turn and a quarter turn, and then you can remove the mat. The mat's also got this backing on it, which catches really good with the carpet. As you could see, with a lot of effort, it really doesn't move around much at all. So basically, with the inspection of that, since you're already in here, go ahead and look and inspect and see other things that's in here other than black carpet, which is the worst freaking color of carpet they ever made in the entire world, which shows up every piece of dirt, sneeze, fart you'd ever do in your vehicle. Pull it up, check. Are there any moisture in here? Does it feel wet? If it's kind of wet under here and you don't take this up very often, then you may have a leak somewhere that's letting water in. That's very common on the Toyota Hilux models, for it to leak water down in here in the floorboard, and then what happens is it gets wet and it rots the floorboard out. That happens very commonly. So this looks good. No kind of major issues. Inspect everything while you're in here. You're more than welcome to go ahead and clean it. I'm not going to clean it because I'm going to detail the vehicle later. After we get this back in, make sure these tabs line up correctly. They're in the right position because these will only fit in one place. Twist this tab, and as you can see now, the floor mat is locked in and will not move from the driver floorboard. So you don't have to worry about it getting underneath the pedals and causing any kind of issue while you're driving. I'm going to hit the gas or the brake. Next thing that you want to check while you're in cab is your parking brake. Your parking brake should go between 5 to 7 clicks before it grabs. And how do you count the clicks? Well, believe it or not, it's pretty simple. While the vehicle's started, it's sitting on a slope of some kind. I'd assume not a steep one, but you could try it and get as tight as you like. You count it as you pull it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 clicks. Between 5 and 7 is good. If it needs to be adjusted, the 2009 Tacoma adjustment was located underneath the glove compartment. It's very easy to adjust. On this specific model, it may be located there depending on your cab. If it's a quad cab or extended cab such as this one, it could be in a different spot. It could be under the vehicle. So that is something you will have to determine on your own. My parking brake is good. I will not be doing any adjustments, but I did check it in the event that it did need adjusting. Now, the very last thing that you're going to check. Now, one thing that's commonly not mentioned ever on any of the service manuals that I've ever seen at 100,000 miles is to check the door seals. So your door seals. One thing that's commonly overlooked when doing an inspection, especially something visual, it doesn't take long, is door seals. Check your door seals. Are they cracked? Do they look bad? Have been hearing wind noise coming in? Something else I've commonly noticed over the few times that I've had to extract keys from a locked vehicle, you can usually see chip marks where somebody's went in here with something like this and they've chipped this away. So if you feel somebody's been in your vehicle, a surefire way to tell is to pop the door open and check this seal here. Is it damaged? Has it got a tear? Is it cut? Are there any kind of indication marks along here that show that somebody's pried inside your door? If they are, then that's a common sign that, hey, somebody's been in here that shouldn't. In my event, I don't have any issues at all on any of the surfaces all the way around the vehicle, around both driver and passenger doors. The seals look to be intact and in very good shape, so we're going to go good with the seals. Now we're going to move on to the last thing that's on the list, and that's the most obvious ones because these are things that you notice because you use them. They're very important to check, and that's the windshield wipers. These wipers were recently replaced. I use this brand specifically after watching a fellow YouTuber by the name of Project Farm. He recommended these wipers. After watching him test the other ones, I felt these were adequate for what I need. They are a little pricey, but they have done very well thus far. Wipers seem to be something that typically only are replaced when you start seeing them smear. I've noticed that if you use waxes and things on your hood, whenever it rains, the wax will blow off the hood, gets on the windshield. When it gets on the windshield, the wipers, then it seems like their timeline really goes down. Average wipers, depending on temperature, but mostly in my experience in my area, last anywhere between 3 to 6 months. Those are conventional regular wiper blades, not silicone ones such as these or any other silicone ones. I'm still new to silicone, so I can't give you an estimate on how well these will perform. It's a time with waxes and things like that, but that's something I commonly see. Another thing is anytime you buy a new vehicle or a used vehicle, specifically new to you vehicle, you want to make sure you always replace the wipers, because 9 times out of 10 the wipers have not been replaced. It concludes everything that you need to do a full inspection of 100,000 miles visually. It takes no time to do, fellas. So 10 minutes, go through the steps, 3 minutes down. Got all the end cab done. The next section that we'll be starting and we're going to go over is the above ground and under hood. First thing we have listed are fluids. Primarily the fluids that we're going to find underneath here is your brake fluid, your power steering fluid, your washer fluid, your antifreeze. Do not plan on changing any of these fluids. Still a good call to check these. Coolant, you can pop the cap off and check under it and make sure it's full. You also would want to check your reservoir to make sure that it's filled to the proper level. Same goes with your power steering fluid, brake fluid. Part of our 100,000 mile is going to include the battery terminals. Basically what we're going to do is, after looking at this, you can see it's pretty dirty. The area around it is pretty dirty, which is just from normal use. I could check the battery voltage to make sure that it's still charging well, but I've not had any issues with it. If you want further detail on how to check battery charging, I can do a separate video on that. If you guys want to see it, just let me know in the comment section. I can do one. There's been hundreds done, kind of the same. So basically, whenever you're replacing a battery, the main thing I look for is this number, this right here, the group number, which I number, and it'll tell you the size, so that way it's the same dimension and it fits in the same exact slot as this one does. You can get a bigger one with more cold cranking amps, and I've done that multiple times. Usually if I replace a battery, I put one with bigger cold cranking amps in it, for the fact that I know I'm going to upgrade the electronics later, so therefore I'd rather go ahead and have more cold cranking amps at my disposal than to have less. You can see this area located here is pretty dirty. No issues or any kind of corrosion occurring here, which means I'm making good contact and there's not a lot of dirt in there. But in general, the battery and stuff area needs to remain remotely clean. This by no means is clean, so that's something that we need to address. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to do that by using this tool here. This tool is a pretty simple standard tool. You can get it about anywhere, and all it's used for is to clean your battery terminals, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But that's all we're going to do for this battery. The battery's doing just fine. There's no need to replace it. This cleaning process for both the positive, which is the red, and the negative, which has the electrons. So notice whenever dealing with battery terminals, you want to make sure that you use the smallest wrench possible or tool possible, because you want to be aware of the throwing range and motion and what it's going to touch. It's not a big deal if I'm on this terminal here, it being the ground side, and accidentally hit the side over here or whatever. That's not a big deal. No issues, no sparks there. But if you're on the positive side located here, right there, and I go over and accidentally come back up to the front here and bam, and I clock in with the frame, you're going to cause sparks. We don't want that. We want to be safe about it. So be factory terminals. The factory terminals are 10 millimeters. So just loosen it up. Be aware of what's around it. Should be able to wiggle them and take them loose. Now there's no need to take this loose. I'm assuming that this specifically is for the inverter. This truck has a power inverter located in the back of it to plug a 120 volt outlet in it. Never used it ever. It's still going to come in handy one day. I know I'm going to need it, but my assumption is this runs straight to that power inverter, so that way it gets good power and doesn't run through any kind of fuse box or anything from the inside, is my assumption what this is for. Pretty tight, so you definitely don't want to use pliers and stick it in here and grab it and then mess up the threads on it, because then you're not going to get it off. Then when you don't get it off, then it just makes for a bad day. So you want to make sure you do use something good. Something I've used in the past on our Toyota pickup / Hilux truck is a pair of line wrenches. Around the bolt, if I couldn't reach on it with a socket due to interference of other things, use a line wrench on it so it gets multiple sides of the nut or the bolt, and I'm able to take it off that way. But whatever you do, basically all I'm going to do is remove this and I'll show you how to clean it. Start with the positive when we replace them, so that way if I accidentally ground that on the frame, I have no issues with worrying about it causing any spark, because as you can see the negative cable's away from it, so it shouldn't cause any issues. You definitely check the ground that comes right off the battery. This is critical and crucial to a lot of engine electronics. It's also 10 millimeter. 1,000-mile service. Give me just a second here, let me get a couple things ready. Now we're going to inspect the drive belt. Inspect is pretty simple. You look for any kind of cracks. Is it squealing when it starts? Is it squealing anytime? If it's not squealing, you don't have any issues with any kind of squeal or anything like that, that's good. You want to check, make sure there's no kind of cracks or anything that are located under it. Best way I've always found the cracks is in the rib. The ribs of the belt can be observed there. Though I can't get a good camera angle on it, it's very visible. I can see that there's no wires, no cracking, no chipping, anything like that. I don't have any issues with the belt. First thing I'm going to do is remove this cover. This cover just held on by snaps. Just want to go around it. Pull up two here, it felt like. Slide it forward. As you can see here, it's held on right here and here. These 2 points, snap piece. One there and one there. One goes here, one goes here. Those clamp off, and it'll remove this tube, and this will give you access. You can scoot it out of the way, and I'm going to show you how. Now, you don't need an extension, but I'm using one for video purposes, so that way you can see a little bit. What I like to do to keep these hose clamps from falling off the end is just snug them back down. When you got electric impact, just snug them back down just a little bit. That way, not flopping around, it won't fall off. And then look here. Now, in order to reach these spark plugs over here, we have to move this air box out of the way. As you can see, the spark plugs are located 1, 2 under here, and 3 over here. We need to move this out of the way. Now, you can take them completely loose. I'm just going to pull over like this, being sure not to get our throttle body dirty. We'll move it over here like this. Then I can reach the spark plugs in order to change them. Now, I'm not short by any means, but it's still a little bit of a reach, so you might need you something to stand on so you can reach it, and I'll show you what you're looking at when you get over here. And this is on the right side, aka the passenger side. As you can see, you can reach that coil pack to take that one out, front one to take that one out. But you can't reach this one. It's hid underneath here. Another thing is, if you notice, the coil pack on this one doesn't point down, it points that way. So we'll have to remove this bracket that holds this wire loom on in order to get to that spark plug, which is no big deal. No big deal. So what you want to do is remove this bolt here. This holds this wire loom, which goes to this coil pack, to the rear coil pack. It's located here. And once you remove that, you can't move it out of the way just yet. You have to remove the coil pack connector here and there. And so if you get these confused as to which ones these right here actually went in, just remember, it only goes in one place. This one's shorter than that one is. And as you can see, here's the connector for this one. Take it loose. There's one in the rear back here. There's 2. Take this connector loose here. Connector loose. Now what do you see? Coil pack in the middle that we need to reach. But you also want to go ahead and take this one loose. Now that we have open access to all 3 coils, what I want to do is remove the third one that goes to the middle one, in which the bracket we had to remove is. Like I've said before, don't push this in and pull on those wires. That's really bad. You don't want to pull one of them loose and have to sort it back in there. So all I'm going to do is just button down pinch it down. Some of these get pretty stuck, so now it's off. Now that all three coil packs are disconnected, we can begin to remove spark plugs. Spark plugs are held in by a 10 millimeter, as everything else is on the Toyota almost. Not very tight at all. Now we should be able to reach right down in here. There could be a little suction holding it in, but shouldn't be much. There's the coil pack. Set this to the side. Repeat the process for the other two, same fashion. All right, now that we got the coil pack removed, we're going to make sure we use a socket that we're not going to drop the spark plug with. Socket itself, if you look down in here, if you can see it on camera, has a little rubber insert in it, which keeps you from dropping the spark plug whenever you go to pull it out. This is critical to get it out unless you want to use a magnet. I prefer to do these by hand. I would not recommend using an impact gun at all. Slide it down in here. As you can see, I have a really long extension because I want to make sure that it'll fit. I think that's 12 inches, the extension is. Have it on there. Alright, so it's loose. Since we use a good spark plug socket, the wear pattern for the spark plug, as you can tell, this is identical to the one we're going to be replacing it with. Something like the auto light one. Another thing, if you haven't watched the intro video to this build, you should, because it explains the spark plug difference, and you can find that linked in the top corner here. As you can tell as well, it does not have any anti-seize on it. Here's the spark plug that I'm going to use. Part number, which you can find in the intro video. First thing you want to do is you want to check, make sure the spark plugs are identically the same in length. And other things, you can also look at the part number on both to make sure they're both the same. Next thing you want to do is put a little anti-seize on this just to be safe. Even if it's not needed, I'm still doing it. How much anti-seize do I need on this spark plug? About that much. That's probably a little too much, but about that. You don't need a lot. You want to make sure you use one of these so it doesn't fall off, and as you can tell when you turn it upside down, it doesn't fall off. This is the correct socket. However, once you get it on there, it's liable to get stuck and it'll come loose right here from the extension. So you want to be mindful of that and not shove it way down in there. You just want it in there enough where you can still be able to wiggle it and get it loose. And it will get stuck, trust me. Quit being stingy. Get back my socket. Alright. Got my socket back. Now I'm going to switch sockets. I'm going to use a regular one so I don't worry about getting stuck on the spark plug. Make sure I know it's the right size, correct size. I've already checked it. Down in there. Feel it's tight. The box indicates on the mating surface that you have. So I'm going to do a quarter to a half a turn past tight. Use this socket. Don't use an impact. There's about a quarter. There's between quarter and a half. Put the coil pack back. The correct orientation. Bolt back in the coil pack. It's tight right there. Go ahead and do these two. Seemingly pretty simple, same straightforward process. We'll take a break and then we'll go over to the other side and we'll tackle the other side. Alright, now that you're back, just want to let you know that we saved the good for last. As you can tell underneath the intake, which is here, all these vacuum hoses and fuel lines and brake lines and clutch line, all that are the 3 spark plugs we got to reach. So, as you can see already down through here, you need a swivel. That's a 12 millimeter. This one is a 12 millimeter. There's also a bracket mounted right here on the back. That's a 12. Well, to get to that, and we'll be able to get the coil out. In order to access this bolt right above the driver's side tire, you can look right back in there. You can see it. Get her lined up by sticking it through there like that, and then once you do that, you'll turn the wrench, get it loose. Line it up from up here so that way you can get it. Now you might be able to reach a wrench down in here and get it loose, but I chose the other route. Either the top or the bottom one loose until you take this line loose, because you don't want to take a chance on this right here rotating and it causing a tear or a bend in this line. So be mindful of that. We'll remove that. The rear one, remove this entire brace. In order to do that, bolt here is one on the bottom, as you'll see. There's also one that holds this line right here to this bracket. The reason why we have to move this bracket out of the way so the spark plug coil pack will come out this way and a spark plug. Therefore, you can see the wrenches on it here. You have to take that loose. Be mindful to not take anything loose until you remove the one where the line's at. Another one located at the bottom. The one you can see right here. That's the one we're going to remove. It'll be a 12mm as well. Come in here a little closer, you can see there's the middle spark plug. See the front spark plug. The rear one's over here underneath this padding. That foam padding. Also by that rear spark plug is also the PCV valve. If you're going to do one job, might as well do them both. Well, it's pretty accessible. Just make sure that I don't pull on the wire. Some of the vacuum lines and things. So we're going to do that, and we'll tackle it. You could see better as well. Pull these out. Take this and pull it out. Now you can completely remove this, and it's pretty simple. The clamp right here, we're going to squeeze it together. Move the clamp up, pull the hose loose, and when we do that, we should be able to move this out of the way. So that way we can have access and we can see what we're doing, okay? These run into hard lines that run down. My assumption is they go to the fuel. So you don't want to bend these. Hard line to a soft line, so we want to make sure that we don't bend on this too much. We don't want to cause a leak. So we just want to bend them out of the way just a little bit. Take the middle coil pack loose entirely after disconnect the connector on the back. Remember now, push this down, don't pull on the wires. Now on to the foam one. The foam will be in the back one. It's located close to the firewall on the driver's side or left side. So as you can see right here, and you can feel it if you ever feel it, it's foam cushion, and my assumption is to keep heating things off. Now in order to reach the coil pack, you can see the plug. It's plugged in right there. Here's the electrical plug for it, and you can pull that back and see it, but this is in there. So how is this held in there? Well, as you can see, this bolt located right there. Take that bolt loose and it'll remove this pad, and that's what we're going to do so that we can reach it. Not only is the coil pack down there, guess what else is down there? Hope you guessed it right, the PCV valve. So we're going to clean it as well. That's part of our 100K service. So 10mm. Now we're going to slide it rear to front of the valve cover. Slide it out of the way. Here's our pad that we removed for that spark plug. We'll set it out of the way. You can see where the hose indentions have been on. I don't know if they've got hot or if it's just wore from rubbing. Either which way, we'll set this out to the side. Now with the foam pad out of the way, we have access to our coil pack and we have access to our PCV valve. Before I go turn on this PCV valve, I'm going to spray a little bit of penetrating fluid. I have upgraded the one that has a nozzle that goes on it. Just a dab. Now don't ask me why, but it's definitely not a 19mm. TO's usually pretty good about keeping the same size wrenches and stuff, but it's not a 19. So now we got our PCV valve out, as you can see. I did chew the edges of it up because I don't have a socket to fit. But this is, believe it or not, it's not on there very tight. It does have a seal around it here. But it's not on there deathly tight, and it's plastic. So make sure you're gentle with it. I was able to reach it with a pair of channel lock pliers. I want to know how to clean this PCV valve. Well, basically it's just a spring on the inside here, and I know because when I push in it, it goes down the other way. So you can go in this way. So basically, when the engine creates vacuum, it goes up, down in it right here. So basically, I just sprayed. So on how to clean this, basically I just took carb cleaner. My can says carb and throttle body cleaner. Push that spring in and spray it really good. It's running out the other end, spray it really good. As you can see, it's just... Right, now the only thing left to do, if you're over here doing your spark plugs, is put all your stuff back the way you found it. Let's take a minute, clean out our throttle body. Let's set this up and out of the way. That we've not pulled or tugged anything or whatever, you should be good. If you want to move that completely to clean it, you can see right here is a clip. Move that clip, it'll remove that wire, and you'll be able to move this whole piece out. There's our exposed throttle body, as you can see in there. Using some carb and throttle body cleaner. Carb cleaner worked just fine. Ether, I've been told, will work just fine as well. We just need something to break up the carbon deposits. The most important thing you want to make sure you use is a clean rag. Don't use a dirty one. Don't grab the one that you already got junk on. Get a clean one because it's goes straight into the engine, to the intake, and we don't want to damage that. Use a paper towel, but I wouldn't recommend it due to the lining excess that will fall off of the rag towel. You don't want that sucked up in your engine. I don't know if the video really catches it, but down here on the bottom down here, it's pretty dirty. I'm unsure if you can see it, so I got me a light. But you can see down in, located in the bottom of the throttle body here, see the buildup and deposits. They're located down here on the bottom. See them? They're located at the top as well. You see it? That's what you want to clean. So we're going to open this and we're going to spray back in here where my finger's at. On the bottom, we're going to do the top as well, and we're going to clean that off so that way when this thing is closed or open, it closes and open and seals properly, and that's important. Fuel economy and many other things. So we're going to get a good little trick that I found along the way. Open this up, stick something in here. So to hold it open, I won't have to worry about that dropping back in there. It's a pretty long wrench. To clean this would be pour idle, acceleration, a number of other things, hesitation. All that will come in play if this is dirty or got any kind of debris or buildup on it. Choose to not clean it the way I did, you're more than welcome to take this off. It just bolts up right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this vacuum hose connector right here. But you should be able to take that loose, take it off, and you can clean the front and the back if you'd wish. All that clean. Okay, fellas, so now we're doing things on the ground. First thing we're going to do, and what I feel is probably going to be the longest process, is changing out the coolant. Now, you can check the link above that you'll see right here. It'll show you the intro video, why I chose this fluid specifically. Specific thing to note about this is I made sure that you buy distilled water. Distilled water is important to make sure you get because it has minerals and things removed from it, so you don't get those deposits inside your cooling system. Other things you'll need to access this portion that you'll see in the video will be a 12mm socket. Maybe an extension will be needed depending on your setup and how you're doing it. I always use a pair of channel locks, and you'll see why. I make sure that I use ramps to support the vehicle with a block in the back, and the reason being this allows me to slide 5-gallon bucket underneath it to catch the draining of the coolants, because you don't have to worry about an animal or anything getting a hold of that. Now, it's probably overkill, but I have the bucket, I have the means to do it. It just seems like a plausible idea. You can do this on the ground just fine, but I thought this would be much more superior than doing it on the ground. First and foremost, you want to make sure that the engine is cold to the touch. So it's been sitting for at least 2 hours, I believe. Cold engines, you can tell if it's cold by grabbing the upper radiator hose as well as the bottom and heat. I know it's cold because it's the next morning. I'm not blue. The engine is cold because you do not want to remove this. And now what we want to do is we want to remove the radiator cap located here. Does a turn, that, move this, and the reason being, this will allow air to get inside here and allow the system to drain faster and flush faster. I'm just going to remove it. Just kind of let it sideways like this and worry about any contaminants getting inside of this. Now, this process is similar on all vehicles. However, some vehicles have a air bleed out plug on those. This one not. The process is pretty simple and similar, but this is specific to this truck and moving forward to. I'm also going to be using one of these right here. Specifically, this one's very easy to install. The directions are on the bottom of the funnel part, as you can see here. The reason why I'm buying one of these is I've flushed fluids many a times, and I've always needed one of these. Check my intro video, you'll hear the rant about that. So basically, we figure out which color it uses just by looking at the radiator cap. This one's not it. So yellow is out. These are color coordinated. Red is not it. Out. So it could be green or blue. So we're going to try green or blue. Move the radiator cap. Now, the distance on how tall it is from here to here, look at this. This one's probably not it. The reason being is because the green one will sit like this. So if you look how tall that is compared to all that one's probably. We'll get the blue one. Here's the top part, you'll see. Slides all the way in here. Distance between there and there. Pretty similar, huh? Let's try it. The ears on it line up with the radiator. Down in here. Feel there's resistance. It's tight on there. So guess what? For this kit, it's the blue one. Depending on the kit you get, could not be the blue one, but we're going to use the blue. Now, depending on your cooling reservoir location, radiator location, there's different adapters and things that come with this kit specifically. So you put it at an angle, make it a little taller if it's down in there a little bit and you can't reach it. Here's another angle. As you can see, these two angles are relatively similar in angle, but distance is different. However, for our application, we won't need that because it's already located on the top. If you want to hold a little more fluid, you could put. We could take this and stick this right on here like this. Now, before we begin to drain this coolant, we want to make sure we can get air to access to come through the inside of this and come down in while we're draining it so it'll drain faster. So in the middle, the orange plug that'll stop our coolant, we want to just twist it a little bit and pull it loose. See it move, the stopper move? That'll allow some air in. We don't need dirt in, we just need a little bit of air, so we're just going to set it to the side. So that way we have clear access for air to come in here to help this drain faster. Now we're ready to get underneath the truck and do the on. Now I've shown how to remove these bolts in the past to get this skid plate, which has to come off in order to access extension stuff straight up there. Another thing to make note is whenever you take these bolts right here off, it is a very, very, very good idea to put anti-seize on them before you put them back. I do this every time I change the oil. The reason why is because the skid plate has to be removed to change the oil, as you can see in the link posted up here. The other reason why I make sure I always do it is because this is on the bottom of the engine. It gets the most water, anything that's on the road, and I had previously have had in our Toyota Hilux / pickup truck, these bolts have broke off and I've had to drill. As you can see, this plate right here still has pieces where I had anti-seize on my hand and put the plate back up in. Now, underneath the vehicle, there's always called a petcock. A petcock is used to drain the radiator out of coolant or whatever it is, so that way you can, if you're going to remove it, you have to work on the engine's cooling system or whatever. They're always located. As you can see here, this petcock is located here. There is a spot for you to put a hose if you want to run it down some, so that way you don't worry about it running down here or there or whatever. This is your petcock. Basically, you'll turn this loose. I've noticed. Didn't even need pliers for this one. It's already loose. Loose enough to where we can drain it. Bucket in place. I'm going to remove the stopper. Set the radiator cap up here out of the way. Make sure we don't contaminate the end of that. Prop it up where it's elevated. Add distilled water. I see the water bubbling out. It's important that you get all that out. If not, you're going to have heating issues. The gauge will move because it'll get hot and cold, or get really hot when it shouldn't be, then jump back down to cold. The heater won't work. Commonly, I see a lot of heater issue fails on an older vehicle. For some reason, they say I have heat while I'm driving, but I don't have heat when I'm sitting. You usually check your coolant level. If it's low or it's got air in it, either one, that's usually your issue. You can top it off with coolant, get the air out, fixes the issue. Squeeze on the hose a little bit, help get some of the air out as well. Top this thing off. This is our first gallon. Now we're going to make sure there's nothing in the way of anything, and we're going to start the truck. When we start the truck, you'll begin to see this. Once the thermostat opens, you'll begin to see air bubbles appear here. Before you do this, this jug's empty, get you another one. Get another one is you definitely do not want this to run dry, because one, it's going to get way too hot too soon. Two, the second and worst issue you're going to have, you're going to get even more air in here. Keep doing this again. So keep your jug handy and start the truck. The process of this running will take just a minute before the thermostat opens, before it'll drag any water in. Important. Our first flush, ended up not using our entire gallon of water. It did get all the bubbles out. I got it up. The heat was working just fine. At the beginning, the heat was not working at all. It was cold air. As the temperature rose, it rose and dropped multiple times. Once this is done, just kind of going to give you an overview. Got that done is let the engine cool. We're going to repeat again. Now, whenever I don't want to flush this with water and not just go ahead and add the new coolant. In the event you get a vehicle, you're not sure what's in it, then you want to flush it with water. Couple reasons. One, you want to make sure it has distilled water and not hose water or tap water in it. Like I said, that has things added to it that are not good for the cooling system, that interact with the metalloids that's inside the cooling system. The second, we would much rather learn to use a tool like this using water, so that way if you spill some of it, oh well. If you're going to go with your coolant, use that, and you go to pull it out and you drain new coolant everywhere, and it costs money, then there you're going to be out money. There's no harm in doing this way with this water first, and trust me, it'll be worth it. Cool. too hot to drain. Just grabbing the radiator hose. It's a little warm. It has a little pink in it because the air bubbles have some of the pink coolant that was originally in the system. It's been dragged back up in through the cooling system into this funnel, which tells you that it's still not flushed out completely. That should be as clear as the water jug beside of it here. So that means we know for a fact that we are getting water in here for one, and for two, the coolant system's not yet. So we're just going to wait it out. Well, as you can tell through all these flushes, these are the flushes in order. This is the first, maybe some of the second, maybe some of the third, maybe some of the fourth, and then the fourth one, actually I put back inside a new antifreeze jug because after testing, no balls floated on it, as shown here. Another quick and easy way to tell this fluid's been drained completely: buy one of these antifreeze testers, and though it's wore off, one ball's floating, it's good up to positive 20 degrees. Two balls, positive 5, 3, 4, and 5. So the more balls floating, the better it is. Take the tester, make sure there's no air in it, squeeze it, and these are inexpensive to buy. Suck fluid up in it. Then now what we're going to do is you're going to observe the tester. What does it say? Well, how many balls do you see floating? I don't see any either. Since no balls floated, you can notice the difference in the color. It's like a dark, dingy looking color. It's kind of old, wore out. And you look at this one, see how this one looks a little lighter colored? Hopefully side by side you can kind of tell the difference. Even when you, with an untrained eye, can tell side by side, there's a significant difference between the new coolant, the old coolant. So as a controlled sample, you can see this one has not been opened. So I'll squeeze it, put a hole in it, peel this off, make sure not to drop any of it in the cooling. Take our antifreeze tester here, insert it, hook it up. This is our antifreeze that we're putting back in. As you can see, they have 4 balls floating. 4 balls indicated on the paper that we have here means it's good. It's negative 25. You know what? It's plenty good enough for me. Tools that we're going to use to complete this job is just a simple water bottle. You can put a hole in the lid if you like. I'm not going to. A line wrench, which I indicated before, is a must. As you can see, unlike a combination wrench, this actually grabs on more sides. This is a must, especially dealing with rustic brake lines. This is a must. Next thing that you'll need is your DOT 3 or 4 or specific brake fluid for your model. This is the hose diameter and things that I'm using for my self-bleeder. What I'm going to do is attach our hose, and when we attach our hose on the end of it, I'm just going to put a little zip tie on the end of it just to kind of hold it tight. You're going to take your line wrench. One is a 10 millimeter, as I assumed it would be, which is why I bought the wrench years ago. Break it loose. There's just a little bit loose. I remember on a line wrench, I have to slide it forward to slide it off. See, it's bleeding out. It's okay. Put this hose over it. Run up here. And this zip tie on it. Zip tie to me is just cheap insurance, so I don't have to worry about it getting any extra air in it. We can turn the bleeder screw. The other end gets inserted in fluid in the bottle. Where the fluid is. Make sure the hose goes all the way to the bottom. So if it does draw in fluid, it draws in fluid and not air. As you can see, the bleeder valve's already starting to leak out. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open it up. And now if you're one person, you leave this open like this. You go up there and you pump the brakes, watching the master cylinder. Make sure you do not run it dry. See the fluid? Fluid actually looks pretty good. Get into this process, you want to make sure you go and check your master cylinder very frequently. Light so that way I can see the master cylinder from the side here, because this fluid where it's so clear and this is so new you can't really see it all that well. We'll top it back off, continue on. Check their fluid level and topped it off. It was a little low. The brake fluid has changed from a light color to a dark color, which indicates we're getting all the old stuff out, and that's what we want. Process, starting with the right rear, right front, left front. I ragged all the way around this. Any of this on the paint. Good. I got a good firm pedal. New brake fluid. We're good for 50,000 miles. Now, if you just done a visual inspection, the inspection itself and knowing the fluid levels will tell you numerous amounts of things. Two is our power steering fluid directly beside the upper radiator hose. Power steering pump, first thing you want to do is wipe all this off with a clean rag. That way we don't get any dirt or contaminants down in this. You can tell it's still dirty, but we can clean this on the bench a lot easier than cleaning it in here, but there's no major dirt or contaminants, and that was our concern. Note to yourself that on the power steering fluid reservoir, it has 4 markings, one being hot max, hot minimum, indicated here. The other side has cold max, minimum. So depending on your vehicle and what stage it's in, if it's just been warmed up, just got back from driving it, if it's been sitting a while, will determine where these levels are. But it should always go without saying, it should never be below the lowest line indicated here. Change this. Well, I'll show you. Method is to use a turkey baster or something like that. Pull it out, put it in, so that way you don't cross-contaminate it, especially if it's a new one. In our vent, we have a siphon hose, and so I'm just going to open the cap and run the siphon over and put it into a cup. What I'm going to do is siphon this out until it's empty. 2. Ugh. Ugh. Gross. Moving this hose around to get all I can out of here. All I can get out this way without taking the line loose, which I prefer to not do. If you'd like to take it loose, you can probably just crack this line right here loose, put your catch under it, and take it out that way. I'm taking it out this way. It's entirely your rig, your call. This out calls for ATF Dextron 2 or 3 fluid to be put back inside the vehicle for the power steering fluid reservoir. So what we're going to use is this. Even though it's only semi-synthetic, it's the closest I could find at all my local parts stores, including car. And so I'm just going to use this. The manufacturer seems to be pretty decent, as we've used their products in other parts of this vehicle as well. Now we're moving on to the differential fluid. The differential fluid, or diff oil, you may hear me refer to it as. Specifically, when picking out diff oil, one thing you want to be on the lookout for: it must meet GL5 standards. If it meets GL5 standards, then you're good. That's exactly what you need, GL5 standards. It also says it meets GL4 standards, which means if you'd like, you can use this in the manual transmission that we're going to use. The automatic transmission may use a different one. It doesn't work for my application, so you'll have to check. Next best thing is it tells you it's safe to blend it with synthetic or petroleum gear oils. So if it still has factory gear oil in this, or diff fluid in this for the gears, then it'll be just fine, because you're not going to get all of it out. Now if you're going to do a full rebuild, yeah, you'll wash it and get it all out. More than likely you won't. Another thing, remember, when you're going for your differential fluid to drain or refill, you're going to need a 24mm socket. It's not commonly found in a complete tool set, so you'll have to purchase one. Or if you'd like, you can go to the local parts store, rent it, use it, take it back. It has to be a 24mm. Though this one is a 12-point, the actual bolt is a 6-point. It's used on numerous applications for this service. Now this should go without saying. Make sure you always remove the fill before you remove the drain. As I've stated previously, or will state, if you remove the drain, you drain it all out, then you cannot put any back in to fill it up. So make sure you remove the fill first, then the drain. Worst case, you can get the fill off, you can't get the drain off. maybe able to siphon some of it out, or two, you don't have to worry about draining it out and being unable to operate the vehicle. As you can see, that fluid looks really clean, and that's what we like to see. It means it's not contaminated with any kind of water. Just going to let it drain. A good reminder to go without saying, if you drive this thing around 5 or 10 minutes, get that kind of warm, it'll drain a lot faster. If you do it from a cold day or a cold start, it's going to take a lot longer. Another thing to observe is this is the drain plug. As you can see, it has some metal shavings on it, but it doesn't look to be a tremendous amount of metal shavings. And I didn't see any coming out, but we'll check the drain pan. As you can see, it's magnetized. You can see there's still some. This is what come out of it. But we're putting synthetic back in it. Should help all the wear. So make sure you clean this off really well, so that way in the future we change this again, we can look at this and see it's the actual gear failure making contact, or if it's some other issue. So clean that off very well with a nice clean rag. So it's good to make note that both these come off with a washer. Not for sure the interval you're supposed to change these washers, but you can check more thoroughly to verify if yours needs to be changed. These seem to be in good shape. They're not used, they're not ripped or broken anywhere, so I'm going to continue to use mine. Yet again, your rig, your call. In this area with a good clean rag or some brake clean, so it's good and dry, so that way if this spot does spring a leak, you know exactly where your leak's coming from. It's coming from here because it's wet. You'll have to climb underneath here, take a look. Now there's a torque spec for this. I'm unsure what it is, but I'm just going to snug it up pretty good. Don't have to be deathly tight, just has to be snug. I'm going to say good. Now, here's where a knife, either one. Put it at an angle if you like, but I just need it to go in there, so we can verify we can turn this up to here, and it will go in. We turn it up over to here, the rest of it drain in. So I'm gonna cut down to this second one right here, and if not, got more jugs. If you cut it too short, you can always get one off another jug. One cut, two cuts. Then, till I squashed it a little bit, get it back out a little bit. Now, process filling this, you fill this thing up until fluid begins to drain out of this, and fluid begins to come out of this. The total capacity for this differential fluid slash oil, gear oil, rear differential, rear end oil, whatever you would like to label it as, is 4 quarts. About to find out as is with just the cap, you can, but you have to remove this spare tire here. If you choose to not want to remove the spare tire, you're going to either need a pump or you can use a siphon unit as showed here. Tube and in the bottle to the bottom. Note I'm hanging the hose above this hole here, so that way it'll have time to run out. It won't run back down this hose. Beginning to run out. The whole fuel hose set. Tells me I'm full. Don't want it deft tight. Don't know the torque spec. Well, welcome, look it up if you're concerned about it. I'm not. I assume if you're here, you're not either. It's tight. This is our front differential in which we're changing the fluid in it. It only calls for 1 quart. It is significantly smaller than a rear one. The next thing that's different about it is this one uses a Allen bolt in order to change. So for this one, you don't use the 24 millimeter. For this one, we want to use a 10, I think it's a 10 millimeter Allen. That's what we're going to use to change this. Okay, fellas, the next thing we're going to change is the transmission fluid. Now, these transmissions are different. Mine specifically is a 6-speed manual. So for the 6-speed manual transmission, it calls for GL-3 or GL-4 lubricant only. For my manual transmission, it shows it holds 2.6 quarts or 2.5 liters. I specifically went with AMSOIL. For one, it was recommended by Big E to do so. Two, I also went with it because it's the only one that indicates clearly on the label that it's GL-4 specific. Now, as I'm going through the local parts stores and looking, I was able to locate some GL4 and GL5 specific fluids that would work, that are a popular brand, that are of a purple color. However, I was not comfortable mixing anything other than GL4 for the specifics of this transmission, and seemingly to me is very rare to find in a vehicle. It's also, even using popular online websites, you can't even find a clutch replacement kit as of yet. Not saying there's not one if I call the local parts store, but I couldn't locate one. For a specific reason, I'm going to use this one as indicated right here. GL-4 performance required by some models of, and Toyota is specifically on here. So locate the drain plug. It's passenger side or right side. Here where the front tire is. Right underneath here, you can see the fill and you can see the drain. All you gotta do is take it loose. As I've stated plenty of times before, fill plug loose first, drain plug loose last. Pretty simple to locate. Remember now, this is the transmission. As you can see here where it bolts to the engine, this is not the transfer case. I'm moving from rear to front of the vehicle. The next thing we're going to change is the transfer case. As you can tell in the transfer case, there's two definite screws. As I stated before, make sure you remove the fill before you remove the drain. And we're going to fill it with the same fluid or oil that went in the differential, as it calls for the same and meet specifications, and it was recommended by Big E. It looked to be nowhere near as clean as what the rear end was, but it's still good and warm, so it's going to drain. This fill and drain plug both are hollow like this, so therefore I guess it wouldn't really matter unless they're threaded different which hole they went back in. It only shows to hold, I think it's 1 quart. Now starting from the rear is what we're going to do. Work our way forward. We're going to deal with our propeller shaft slash drive line, and we're going to do a number of different things. At each universal joint, as seen here, is a grease fitting. We're going to put grease in it. Grease specifically has to be lithium based. Not only are we going to add grease to these fittings, we're also going to tighten up or retorque these propeller shaft bolts. Can't find a definite answer or a Haynes manual specifically stating what these bolts are supposed to actually be at. What I'm going to do is snug these bolts down to where they feel good and tight, and I'm going to start here and I'm going to work my way all the way to the front. As you can see right here, these boots will swell. If you want it to explode or start leaking, you just want to fill it up, and you'll hear it make a little crackling noise. I don't know if you'll hear it in the video, but in real life you'll hear it. When you do, you know, hey, don't need it full like you are after Thanksgiving dinner. Now if you go to put this on and it's not seated all the way and you start pumping grease, start squirting it out, I'll tell you, hey, it ain't seated all the way, I need to fix that. So it's not leaking out. See how it's leaking just a little bit right there? Put a little too much in it. But I didn't split it all the way. Now we're just going to go around and tighten all these 14 millimeter. So now y'all done going on your bathroom break. Figure the last fluid needs to be changed. In service like this is the oil. It is strongly recommended in the manual, and I know that's up for high debate, to use 0W20. It even states for service the engine oil, it says if it was not filled with 0W20, please drain and do so. It was due for an oil change before the 100,000 mile mark. So this is just general maintenance. So you ain't got a funnel at home, no problem. Takes 6 quarts to change it. You can see right here. Poured 1 quart in. Cut the top off of it. That's all you gotta do. You know what? You already bought this, so you got a funnel. No contaminants or anything in the engine oil. Be good. Oh, in case you wasn't for sure where it goes, it says engine oil right on it. But oh yeah, you look up here in the corner of the screen, you'll see my video link, how to change the oil and what the oil filter looks like. So feel free to take a look at that if you want more in depth on how to do that. Hey fellas, I appreciate you for tuning in on the video. If I have anything that I missed, could have done a little bit better or whatever, let me know in the comment section below. As always guys, remember, your rig, your call.